restaurant. It's about Alice and the restaurant. But Alice's restaurant.
One bite. Everybody knows the rules.
I mean, I'm obviously going to pick myself. If you're a professional chef, you're probably not watching this video.
I will murder all of you.
How do you get it this juicy every time?
You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
So it's time for our 7th annual turkey cook-off. And this year we figured that we would show you the process of how we prepare our turkeys. After 7 years and a lot of research, I feel like we've gotten pretty good at it. So I'm going to show you how I prep 2 different types of turkeys. One's going to be spatchcocked and then smoked. The other one is going to be deep fried. So I'll show you how I prepare them a little bit differently. But before that, to save time, we are going to start with the brine so we can let that boil away while we're prepping the turkey, get 2 things done at the same time. Now, whereas the brine is a very important process for making turkeys, you have a lot of liberty on how you want to make them. Essentially, all you need is salt, and you can do a dry brine. Just put salt on your bird, let it sit overnight, and that will do the trick. Or you can do a wet brine where we're going to dissolve the salt in water and we're going to soak the bird. Again, we're going to do it, this one probably about 24 hours, but really anywhere from an hour per pound, even like a half hour per pound. If that's all you got, do what you got. So I'm going to do this for a full probably 24 hours and then let it relax in a fridge uncovered overnight after that. So for context, today is Thursday night, and we are having our turkey cook-off on Saturday. So I will get the turkey in the brine tonight. I will pull it out tomorrow night, Friday night, and I will leave it uncovered in the fridge all night Friday night leading into Saturday. And the reason for that is it will actually dry out the skin a little bit more. So the turkey will still retain the moisture that you got from the brine, but the skin will dry off just a little bit. So that will help you get better texture on the skin when you cook it. So let's hop right into the brine. I'll show you how I do mine. So like I said before, the name of the game with brining is salt. Really, at the end of the day, all that matters is salt. So if you do nothing else, you can just add some salt to water, call it a day, and that will be a successful brine. Your turkey will retain moisture, it'll absorb water from the brine, and when you cook it, it'll be extra juicy. Now with that, you can add some different flavor profiles into your brine, and the turkey will absorb that as well. So really, anything that's going to make good flavor, you can add to your brine. Everybody has their own recipes. I don't really have a recipe on how I do mine. It's just kind of a few main staples, some garlic, some onion, and really from there, anything that you think is going to add good flavor. The only thing that I try to stay away from is any seasonings that have salt in them. So just a good thing to keep in mind anytime you do any kind of seasoning is to try to find some that don't have salt in it. Because at the end of the day, I want to control how much salt is in something. So I want to put in my own salt. So I try to find seasonings that don't have any salt in it. At the same time, I'm going to be using some chicken stock. I don't normally do this, but I wanted to add a little bit more stock to this one just to keep the flavor rather than going straight water. But I'm using no salt stock. So it's easier that way than trying to calculate how much salt you're putting in from other ingredients. I just want to put in straight salt and nothing else. Another thing that I'm going to stay away from right now, because I'm going to be deep frying one of these birds, is sugar. I do not want to put any sugar into my brine. I think we'll see how it goes. Since I'm only making one pot and then I'm going to split them at the end to make 2 different brines or 2 different pots to store the turkeys in, I think I might end up adding sugar to one of them because I do like putting sugar in my brine. I like putting sugar in my seasoning. Adds a little bit extra sweetness, as you can imagine. But you cannot use any sugar if you're going to deep fry. It will turn your turkey black immediately. So it's still going to taste really well, but it's going to come out pitch black and everybody's going to think it's burnt and no one's going to want it. So even though the texture isn't burnt, the flavor isn't a burnt flavor, it looks horrible. So do not put sugar in your brine or your seasoning if you're going to deep fry it. So because I'm starting off with one pot, I'm not going to put any sugar in it. I might end up adding sugar to one of them at the end, but we'll have to see how that goes. So right now I have my water preheated. It's pretty much at a boil. So I'm just going to cut up some of my vegetables. I got a couple apples here that I found in the fridge. It wasn't part of my initial recipe, but I found them. Might as well use them. Got some carrots, garlic, onion. I got some fresh herbs. Bay leaf, it's a good one to add. I got two things that are just called poultry mix. I happen to see them, and based on what looks like inside of it, it's very similar to some of the herbs I was going to get anyway. So I grabbed two of those, some Italian parsley. Really anything that's going to be aromatic is going to be good for a brine, and anything that gives off good flavor. I have some pickling spice. Again, I usually try to do all of my spices and seasonings individually, but I found this, and after looking in the ingredients, it's a lot of the individual ingredients that I would have liked to use anyway. But instead of getting a single container of all of them individually, I found one that had it all combined. This has no salt in it, no sugar in it. So I think it's going to be a pretty good catch-all for a lot of the things I was going to put in there anyway. From there, obviously salt is the main ingredient. We're going to use a lot of it. About a cup and a half of salt for a 10 to 12 pound turkey. I'm going to go a little bit higher than that because not once have I ever brined a turkey and it came out too salty. So I'm actually going to do 1 3/4 cups of salt per turkey. So I'm going to end up using 3.5 cups total to split between the two. Some Creole seasoning. Creole goes really well with turkey. It's one of the most common ways to season a turkey. I will probably end up seasoning at least one of them with a Creole base. And because of that, I'm going to add it to the brine. So I'm going to keep the same flavor profile, but I'm going to let it absorb into the turkey ahead of time and then also season it afterwards. What else do I got here? Some chili powder. I'll add a little bit, not a lot. Red wine vinegar. I just happened to find this in the pantry and it seemed like it'll add something, so let's try it. I'll put in a little bit, not too much. Some hot sauce, lemon juice. So a lot of people will use oranges and lemons. I didn't get any, so I'm going to splash in some lemon juice. It's not the exact same thing, but it'll add some acidity and it'll help a little bit. And some vanilla extract. This is fake vanilla, but it's going to give off a good aroma. It's going to give off a little bit of taste as well. And again, this doesn't have any sugar or salt in it. It does have some weird chemicals, but no sugar or salt. So that'll be fine. Again, the brine is going to help put flavor into the turkeys, but it's not going to make it or break it. So don't be afraid to experiment, throw some things in there that you like, and see how it goes. So that this brine is only going to be used to for the turkey to sit in and absorb water, the presentation does not have to be great. So for the name of the game with the vegetables here is I'm just going to go for surface area. I'm going to chop them up into not the tiniest pieces I can, but I'm going to chop them up into pretty small pieces because I'm going to get more surface area on it. And hopefully with that, I can get more flavor into the water. So with the carrots, I'm just going to do a straight cut, dice down the side. Garlic, I'm just going to mince that up as normal. The onion, I'm actually going to do 3 different ways, really just to kind of show how to cut an onion 3 different ways. So I have 2 different ways of dicing an onion, and then I'm going to do like strips of onion, and I'm going to do onion rings. So in case you were wondering on a good way to cut an onion, I'm going to show you at least how I do it. The 2 different ways of dicing an onion, I think, are a very valuable way for any home cook to understand, unless you have one of those home choppers, which is kind of cheating, but they work out really well. I kind of wish I did have one, but I don't, so I'm going to do them all by hand. The apples, I'll just cut into pieces, chunks, and just throw it in there. Again, this is all going to get thrown away at the end. You're not saving any of it. You're not presenting any of it. So however you want to do it is perfect. All right, so like I said, I'm going to do the onions 3 different ways, really kind of 4 different cutting techniques. The first one, just have half an onion here. It's cut through the roots. Normally, you always want to cut through the root. When you cut the root off, that's what puts the aroma in the air that makes you cry, your eyes water. So I got half an onion here, and for this one, I'm going to cut it into dices. I'm going to dice the onion up, and for this one, I'm going to do it the Chef Gordon Ramsay way. And this isn't the way that I normally do it, but it is a very useful technique. And if you have a sharp knife and you're comfortable with it, it will definitely work. But it kind of adds one extra step compared to the next way I'm going to do it. So for this one, I am going to do horizontal cuts this way, and then vertical cuts this way, and then I'm going to slice this way. So 3 different planes, and that's going to create your cubes. So the reason why I don't normally do this way is because if you don't have a really sharp knife or you don't trust yourself too much, you're going to be cutting into your fingers. And I'm sure that there's a better way of holding it than this. But once I learned the other technique, I kind of gave up on this one altogether. So I went horizontally. That's the one that is easy to mess up. You're cutting into yourself. You might not trust the knife. This one's a little bit easier. I like putting the point of the knife in first because it keeps everything stable, and then cutting down. Again, if you have a really sharp knife, you can probably just go straight down. This isn't a dull knife by any means, but it's not a $100 knife either. So the closer you get your lines together, the finer your chop is going to be. But again, this is going into a brine, so presentation is not necessarily what I'm going for. So now that I have parallel to the ground cuts, perpendicular to the root cuts, now I'm going to go parallel with the roots. And again, the closer you keep it, the finer your chops are going to be. Once you get down towards the root, don't bother trying to cut your fingers, just let the end go. It's a little bit of waste, but it is what it is. All right, so for this one, I'm going to do dice again, but I'm going to cut it a different way. This is my preferred way of doing it. Starting with a whole onion, cut through the root, but we're not cutting the root off. This gives you a flat surface to work with. Now, if you look at the onion, there are striations going all the way around it, and that's pretty much the lines you want to cut. So instead of doing 2 cuts this way and then this way, you are just going to fan all the way across, and it's going to go through the layers of the onion and still give you the dice. So kind of the same idea. I put the point in first, but now I'm working on an angle, and I'm going to work my way all the way around. No need to go fast. If you're a professional chef, you're probably not watching this video. Some of the cuts overlap each other when I do it. It is what it is. But the nice thing about this technique is you do that one cut, and now we're just ready to dice. Again, the closer you get, the finer the chop. And if you wanted to get some of these pieces that are still on here, you can go back through, cut around the root, but we're going to leave the root off. That's scrap. And these are your diced onions, the way that I prefer to do it. For this one, we're just going to do strips of onions. This one's a lot easier. So we still have the other half of that onion, root side cut in half, root still on there. Now this time we're going to just do that final cut of dicing. And that is going to give you these strips of onion. So they're kind of stuck together, but you got strips. So now for this last one, we're going to do onion rings. So this is the one where it's going to be on a different plane. So now we have the whole onion, and we're going to put the root on a side. So for me, preferably, I'm right-handed. I'm going to put the root into my left hand. If you can find a pretty stable way of holding it, then do that. If you need to cut a flat edge on it to keep it stable, you can do that as well. But now we're just going to do the one slice, going towards the root, and that will give you onion rings. So for the herbs, I'm not really going to do too much with them. I might chop them up a little bit, but I'm kind of just going to throw them in their whole. I mean, I wish you could smell these herbs. It is absolutely amazing. I know it's going to make the brine smell amazing. It's going to make the turkey smell amazing, and it's going to add a lot of flavor. So this poultry mix, it's a really good combination. So I got this at Acme, and I've never seen it before. I've never looked for it before, though, either. To be honest, I don't use fresh herbs most of the time that I do brines. You can use dried seasonings. It's not that big of a deal. But because it's a turkey cook-off and we're doing it on video, I wanted to kind of put my best foot forward. So I got some fresh herbs. We're going to cut them up just a little bit, throw it in, let them steep. So we'll see how it comes out. I know that Jim does his brine very well every year. He takes a lot of time, puts a lot of serious effort into it, and it works out really well for him. As much as I love brining, I don't usually put as much effort into it, and hopefully we can make up for it later, though, in the contest. So I think this is going to end up working just fine. I don't know if Jim will have the courage to tell us his brine recipe, exactly what he did, but he puts a lot of effort into his. He uses a lot of different ingredients. He handpicks every single one each year, it seems like. So maybe we can get him to tell us his secret of what he's doing this year. Since it's on video and this is our 7th time competing against each other, shouldn't really be any secrets anymore, but we'll see if he does it. In the meantime, I'm going to chop these up just a little bit, not very much, and toss them in. So from here, I'm just going to add the rest of these ingredients. Again, I'm going to do 1 3/4 cups of salt per 12-pound turkey. Both my turkeys are right around 12.5 pounds. So I'm treating them the same. Again, there is a science to this, but it's not exact. I've never had one with too much salt in the brine. I've never really been able to taste the salt from the brine, so I'm not concerned with doing 1.75 cups for a 12-pound turkey whatsoever. And when we do the turkey cook-off, if you end up tasting salt in it, then I might have put too much in. But I think 1.75 is going to be fine. I probably wouldn't go up to 2, even though I've never tried it. It might be fine. I'm going to stick with 1.75. If you want to be safe, 1.5 is kind of what the general recommended usage is for salt. So I'm going to put in a total of 3.5 cups of salt. I'm going to put in a decent amount of Creole seasoning, enough that it kind of turns the water a different color. You can tell that it's in there. I don't want it to be overbearing. I don't want that to take over the flavor from everything else we put in there, but I'm going to put in enough that it is in there. So I'll put in this entire packet of pickling spice, chili powder, a tablespoon maybe. I mean, I'm not going to measure it out, but red wine vinegar, couple drops. Again, I've never tried using half these ingredients before. I just saw them laying around. It seemed like it's something that would work, a good flavor profile, good aroma, and that's really what you're going for with this. Hot sauce, again, just enough to notice. The good old Yingling traditional lager is mostly for me, but I might throw a splash in the brine as well. I think I'm only going to put in one thing of this stock. Again, it's not something I normally do. I don't think you need to alter the flavor of the water too much. Really, that's all this would be used for, is to thicken up the taste of the water. But I'll use one, not going to use both that I have here. A little bit of lemon juice and maybe a couple drops of this fake vanilla extract. So I'll get all of that in. We'll get the salt measured out, and then we're just going to let it sit. Again, you don't need to boil it. I prefer to boil it, especially since I'm using some of these vegetables. I want to get the flavor out of them. But at the end of the day, you don't have to boil it. You can use cold water. As long as you get the salt to dissolve, you get some of the seasonings that dissolve, you're good. It's going to soak into the turkey. So do whatever you feel comfortable with. If it's going to take too long, don't bother boiling it. I'll probably let it boil here for at least a half hour. We'll see how long it takes to prep the turkeys themselves. And once I'm done with them, I will turn off the boil. I got a bag of ice in the garage. I got 2 coolers that we're going to use to cool the brine down when it's done, because you can't put the turkey into the brine until it's cool. Kind of rule of thumb is room temperature. I'd probably want to get it less than that. The turkeys are cold. They're completely thawed. They've been sitting out since Sunday. Today's Thursday, but they're still cold. They're going to drop the temperature of the water as well. But I got a big bag of ice. We're going to drop the temperature as far as we can get it. And as long as it's, below room temperature, if it feels cool to the touch, we'll be good. The idea is you don't want to start cooking the turkey in the water. So the coolness will be fine. We're going to put them in a cooler. We're going to leave them in the garage. You can leave them outside. You have room in the fridge, put it in the fridge. It's pretty safe to leave outside. I know right now it's a little warm out here in Ohio, but next week is actual Thanksgiving, so chances are it's going to be a little bit cooler. Seems like we're going through a hot streak, but as long as it's a little cool outside, you're going to be putting so much salt in it that you don't really have to worry about bacteria that much. So keep it cool, keep it salty, you'll be good. So since I just realized that I'm not using kosher salt or some type of rock salt like I normally would, this is much closer to just table salt. I'm going to use a little bit less. So if I was using the kosher salt, I would go with that 3.5 cups for 2 turkeys. Since this is table salt, it's a little bit more packed in, it's more dense. I'm going to use less. Again, I don't think I'm going to go overboard with the amount of salt. I've never even come close to that. So I think I will go with the 3 cups of this salt, which is still 1.5 cups per turkey. I know the total amount is going to be significantly more than if you're using kosher salt, but at the end of the day, I'm still pretty confident that it's not going to be too much salt. So I'm going to use 3 cups of salt instead of 3.5 just because it's a different type of salt than I thought it was, which is my own mistake. So right now the brine is just boiling away. It smells just absolutely delicious. It fogged up the camera, but it smells so good. I'm so excited for it, but I'm just going to let it keep boiling away, and we're going to work on the turkeys, and then afterwards we'll take it off. In the meantime, got the first turkey out. I cut the bag in the sink so I could peel the bag off and all of the juice would be in the sink. I did not rinse the turkey off. There's no reason to really rinse it off. I patted it off a little bit with a paper towel, but there's no reason to rinse it because really all you're going to do is splash raw turkey juice all over your kitchen. All of the juice that's on this turkey, it's going to end up going into the brine. It's going to end up getting cooked. No harm, no foul. But the more you splash it around the kitchen, the more you're going to have to clean when you're done. So I didn't rinse it off, but I did open the packet in the sink because there is a decent amount of turkey juice in there that needs to be disposed of. So this is what came out of the turkey. You got the turkey neck, you got the bag, giblets, you got this plastic piece that holds the legs together. Sometimes these can be a pain to get out. They kind of go in like this, and you have to pull on this part pretty hard to get it out. So it seems like every single year, even though I let my turkey defrost for 3 or 4 days, it's still a little bit frozen when I take it out. This year wasn't too bad. I was able to scrape out some pieces of ice, but nothing was really frozen together, which is great. In years past, there's times where I had to run some water through the cavity of the bird to break up the ice. This year, didn't have to do that, which is great. So for this one, it's going to be the one that I am smoking. And when I smoke it, I'm going to spatchcock the bird. If I'm going to bake it in the oven, if I'm going to smoke it, if I'm going to roast it, really if I'm doing anything except for deep frying, I'm going to spatchcock it. Essentially, I'm going to cut the spine out of the bird and open it up like a butterfly, the bird out. And it's going to end up cooking a lot faster and a lot more evenly when you do that. So I highly recommend doing it. I'm going to show you how I do it. There's not really any real trick to it. This year I have some poultry shears. Never tried them before. Just came in the mail the other day. In the years past, I've used a knife, and it works, especially with a smaller bird, 10 pounds, 12 pounds. It wasn't that big of a deal. I tried doing a larger turkey with a knife, and it was a little bit tougher. So I recommend if you're using a knife to use a cheaper one. Even running to like the dollar store and just getting a new dollar knife that you can throw away at the end, because it can be pretty tough on the knife. So either a really cheap one, or if you have a really, really nice knife that you know can handle dealing with bone, then that would work also. But the very first thing we're going to do before that is rip out this thermometer, because they do not work. Don't rely on this. They don't work. You're going to overcook your turkey, and it's going to be like every single turkey your family's ever made your entire life. It's going to be dry. So if you follow these techniques, if you brine your turkey, if you use an actual thermometer to measure the temperature of your turkey so you don't overcook it, and we'll get to it on Saturday when we actually do the cook-off. But if you cut the meat the correct way, a lot of people don't cut it the right way. You want to cut the breast against the grain. So as it sits on the turkey full, you actually want to end up cutting it this way. A lot of people, especially if you look at old, I don't want to say comics, but there's a lot of drawings. Some of the turkey fryer containers have an old school like Norman Rockwell painting of a turkey getting carved. And it's all like this. They're cutting off turkeys of the bird like this, cutting off slices of the turkey. And that's the wrong way of doing it. You're going with the grain, and it's going to be really chewy. It's going to seem dry even if it's not. So absolutely do not do that. What we're going to do is we're going to cut the breast off of the bird altogether, and then we can cut it against the grain and serve it that way. It's going to be so much better. It makes a night and day difference. If you don't do anything else, cut the breast against the grain. It makes a huge difference no matter how you cook it. So brine, thermometer, cut against the grain, it's going to be better than anything else your family and friends are serving for you, guaranteed. So let's go ahead and cut the spine out of this turkey. I'm going to use my shears, and hopefully they work as advertised, because I've never used them before. All right, so we're going to go ahead and cut the spine off of the turkey. Again, never tried it with shears in general. I've only ever used a knife. But this is kind of what they're designed for, so hopefully it works out pretty well. Had decent reviews online. It's going to be right here, right on the edge of the spine. You're going to be cutting the rib cage, the rib bones off of the spine. So that's why it's got to be pretty tough to go through it. But you can see a good kind of indication of where you need to go. I'm going to start from this side, work my way up on one side, come back, do the other side. All right, so it can be a little tricky. Once you kind of find the groove, that helps it out a little bit. There's a few times where it got a little tough and I thought I was offline. I just didn't trust it, and brute strength was able to get through. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a little tricky, but you can do it. So put a little oomph into it, you'll be fine. The scissors didn't work quite as easily as I expected them to, but they still worked, got the job done. It was a lot easier than using a knife. So now that we got the spine removed, what we want to do is we're going to flip it back over. We're going to press down on the sternum, and it's going to flatten out a little bit. There are people that notch this bone right inside of the neck, the collarbone. I don't really feel like doing it with one of my knives right now, so I'm going to see if I can just get it to split open without using that cut. All right, so just pressing down on the chest, it split pretty easily. So right now, this is a fully spatchcock bird. I probably end up messing with it a little bit more to see if I can get it a little bit more flat than this, but essentially this thing is done and it's ready to go into a brine. Like I said before, this one's going to get put into a smoker, and that's why I spatchcocked it. It's going to cook more evenly. It's going to cook a lot quicker. So even if you're baking it, I'd recommend spatchcocking it just because it's going to cook quicker. And turkey's a very lean meat. That's why we have to go through this whole process of brining it and injecting it to keep it juicy. So the quicker you can cook it, the more juicy it's going to be. So spatchcock it, save a little bit of time, makes it easier on yourselves, gives you more room in the oven for other things if you need it. So I recommend spatchcocking it. It's really not that difficult to do. It can be a little tricky, but take your time, you'll be fine. This one's going to get deep fried, so I'm not going to spatchcock it. So I'll do everything that I did earlier, take it apart, get it ready to go. If there's anything that really needs trimmed on it, this one wasn't too bad. I could probably trim some of the neck skin. It's just going to end up burning or getting really rubbery when you cook it. Depends on how you cook it. Sometimes you can get skin nice and crispy, but sometimes the really flabby skin is just going to get really rubbery. So I might trim some of that off, but outside of that, didn't need to do very much trimming. You usually don't with a turkey. So this one, I'm just going to get it prepped, and then we're ready to throw it into the brine solution. So after adding a lot of ice and doing a lot of stirring, I was able to get the brine down under 60 degrees, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that because the temperature of the bird is going to cool it down even more, and then we're going to be dumping more ice on top of it after it's submerged. So this is ready to go into the coolers. I have two of them, one for each bird. I could probably fit them both into one, but I'm going to split them up. So I'm going to use this 10-gallon cooler for the first one. And actually, I'm going to add some brown sugar into this one before adding the brine. And this will be for the spatchcock turkey. So I'll add some of that sugar that I was missing earlier to add it in. Also, off camera, I added some dry seasoning into this brine. Just doing a double batch, I felt like it could use a little bit more. So I threw in some extra seasonings off the rack, a little bit of everything really. So that should add a little bit more potency to this after adding a lot of ice. It's diluted quite a bit, and I'll probably end up adding, well, more ice for sure, and maybe some more water even. So adding a little bit more spice isn't going to hurt anything. I didn't really think about it being a double batch up front, but again, the brine is very important to do for the salt, but for the flavors, it helps, but it's not going to save the day for you. So it is what it is. I'm going to put the turkeys into the coolers first, breast side down. Even though it's going to be fully submerged, the breast is more likely to dry out than the legs. So you want to make sure that the breast is getting, that it's in the brine, it's absorbing water. So it should be fully submerged the whole time. We're going to let it brine for a full 24 hours, but just to be safe, I'm going to do the breast side down. All right, so after starting to fill the cooler, I changed my mind a little bit. I decided to put both turkeys into the same cooler because, one, there was plenty of room to do so, and also I didn't feel like divvying up the brine exactly even, trying to figure out a lot of the solid content stick to the bottom. So as you dump it out, half of it was going to be in here. of the liquid, but most of the solids are going to be in the other one. So I put them both in the same container. It worked out perfectly fine. The only issue is that I wasn't able to add the brown sugar to it because of that. So I'll make up for it when I do the seasoning. I'll add some sugar to the seasoning for the spatchcock one, but I got both birds in here. I'm using a cooler because I have one. It works out really well like this, but I've done it in a large pot before. Throw it into the fridge, or if you're able to get enough ice into it, you can leave it in the garage, leave it outside also. You can do it in a brining bag. You can get that at any grocery store. It's really just a large plastic bag, smaller than a trash bag, but same idea. And you just twist tie it shut with the entire brine inside. It's designed for brining, and it works just fine. I mean, you could probably get away with using an actual trash bag if you wanted to. But if you have a cooler, I'd recommend it. It's going to keep the temperature better than those other items. Unless you're going to keep it in the fridge. If you have room to put it in the fridge, then it doesn't really matter what you use. The brine bag does leave the risk of it popping and just spilling brine everywhere, which now has raw turkey in it. So you got to be a little bit more careful than you did before of spilling it. But they work. I've used those before. You can use a large pot. Again, if you have the room in the fridge, use whatever you want. But if you have a cooler, clean it out and go for it. It works really well, keeps the temperature cold. I can seal the top, and I don't have to worry about it at all. So I'm going to throw the top on this thing, carry it out to the garage, and I'm going to leave it there for 24 hours. Tomorrow I will take it out. I will pat dry the birds, and then I will put them on some kind of container, an open container in the fridge, and we're going to let that cool air rotate in the air, and it's going to dry out the outside of the turkey just a little bit. It's not going to do anything to the inside. The meat's going to stay perfectly moist, but the skin will dry out just a little bit, and it's going to help the texture when you cook it. So 24 hours from now, I'll pull it out, throw it in the fridge, and then we're traveling down to Jim's house to do the turkey cook-off. So I'm excited for it. See you then.
This song is called Alice's Restaurant. It's about Alice and the restaurant. But Alice's Restaurant is not the name of the restaurant.
Gotta massage those breasts.
And that's why I call the song Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. And you can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Now it all started 2 Thanksgivings ago, it was on 2 years ago on Thanksgiving, when my friend and I went up to visit Alice at the restaurant. But Alice doesn't live in the restaurant, she lives in the church nearby the restaurant in the bell tower with her husband Ray and Facha the dog. And living in the bell tower like that, they got a lot of room downstairs where the pews used to be. And having all that room, seeing as how they took out all the pews, they decided that they didn't have to take out their garbage for a long time. We got up there, we found all the garbage in there, and we decided it'd be a friendly gesture for us to take the garbage down to the city dump. So we took the half a ton of garbage, put it in the back of a red VW microbus, took shovels and rakes and implements of destruction, and headed on toward the city dump. Well, we got there, and there's a big sign and a chain across the dump saying closed on Thanksgiving. And we had never heard of a dump closed on Thanksgiving before, and with tears in our eyes, we drove off into the sunset looking for another place to put the garbage. We didn't find one till we came to a side road, and off the side of the side road was another 15-foot cliff, and At the bottom of the cliff was another pile of garbage, and we decided that one big pile's better than two little piles, and rather than bring that one up, we decided to throw ours down. That's what we did. Drove back to the church, had a Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be Just wanted to know if you had any information about it, and I said, yes, sir, Officer Obi, cannot tell a lie. I put that envelope under that garbage. After speaking to Obi for about 45 minutes on the telephone, we finally arrived at the truth of the matter and said that we had to go down and pick up the garbage and also had to go down and speak to him at the police officer station. So we got in a red VW microbus with the shovels and rakes and implements of destruction, headed on toward the police officer station. Now, friends, there was only one or two things that Obi could have done at the police station, and the first was that he could have given us a medal for being so brave and honest on the telephone, which wasn't very likely and we didn't expect it. Another thing was that he could have bawled us out and told us never to be seen driving garbage around the vicinity again, which is what we expected. But when we got to the police officer station, there was a third possibility that we hadn't even counted upon, and we was both immediately arrested. Handcuffed.
We're live.
No, we're live. Rolling. Actually, I might not have like any fucking room on my going anywhere.
Cooked by two dumbasses.
All right, so Rob is almost undefeated, has one loss to Jim in this series. Kind of lost count, but let's call it 5-1. So,
Okay.
how you feeling with this one, Rob?
Well, I think the record's actually a little bit closer than that. I'd say it's probably like 4-2 or something like that. But this was an interesting cook for sure. The pellets ran out of Jim's smoker halfway through, and we didn't realize it. So, not entirely sure how the cook went. Not ideal, but I think it's all right. His bird looks good though, so I guess we'll find out. But it's time to cut it open.
Time to cut?
Don't ask him for a cut.
Serve that here.
Now, you are a big against the grain guy. You want to explain that one?
Yeah, so you need to cut the breast off of the bird first, and then cut against the grain. So the breast came from here. The last thing you want to do is cut slices this way. You need to cut it off and cut that way. So it's going to be against the grain, and it's going to be way more juicy and flavorful. And even if you have a juicy bird and you don't cut against the grain, it might seem dry. So you got to cut against the grain. This is pretty good.
Now, you do have two birds here.
Yes.
So how's this going to work competition-wise?
I don't know. I guess that's up to the judges to decide. I'd probably go with the smoked one just because it's more apples to apples against Jim. We smoked it in the same smoker together.
Is it apple wood?
No, I would have used fruit wood. He's using a Traeger signature blend. It's probably a heavier smoke than I would have used, but we both use the same smoke. So.
Now, there is a lot of talk that Jim was trying to throw the competition by not putting enough wood chips in the smoker and making it lose about 45 minutes of cook time after it went out.
Yeah, that's true. Sabotage.
Yeah, sabotaging my own birds.
Sabotage. You wanted to throw the whole contest out, I think is what it was. Put an asterisk next to it.
If you can't win, don't try.
Take some juicy meat from my hand. There you go. Yeah, I know. Everybody asks when you have a juicy bird, is it cooked? Yeah, it's cooked. Just nobody's used to having a juicy bird before.
Delicious.
One of those legs is mine. You know what? That one's mine.
Just take it.
Would Knife Man like to assist on this one?
I'm in the middle of something. What do we want? Split this?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what's that. What is the pickle? Nice find.
Beautiful.
I guess.
Look at that. The host. Gotta say. With the most.
All right, let's see what we got going here. This is not the competition bird, so I can be impartial while just annihilating this.
That's good. Full bird.
Oh, buddy.
This
You got something going here.
Yeah, inside of the breast
I didn't know
is
that.
actually
You
two
gotta
different
love.
pieces, and that is the tender, and the rest is just. So if you had to pick one piece,
That's the one to go
So,
for.
All right, Jim. A lot of talk about you trying to throw the competition and killing the smoker about halfway through. How you feeling with your bird right now?
we'll see, man. We'll see. It's pickle brine, so you never know.
All right, so we got the whole how-to with Rob's bird, but we don't know anything about yours. So you want to tell everybody what we're rocking with here, Jim?
2 gallons of pickle juice, a little bit of seasoned salt for the brine, overnight, and that's all she wrote.
wow, Jim, I hyped you up about how intricate you get with your brines,
Yeah, I'm gonna
and
be
then
honest.
this year you didn't do it.
I did not do the complete.
Well, what kind of seasoning we got on here?
We have a
Oh, damn.
barbecue rub that I purchased on Amazon because I was lazy and didn't make my own this year. And then I also got a cherry cola rub that I expected to be a lot better smelling than it is. I didn't use very much of it. So we'll see how that goes too.
Here, get him.
What are you holding?
Microphone. You want to say hi?
Hi.
All right, Chuck. You want to give him a try? See what we're thinking here? Yes, sir. First up, we got Rob's.
This one is fried.
Very good.
Very good.
I'm not good at giving an analysis, so don't expect one.
Very good. I can work with that.
Very good.
All right, hold on. You need to take a sip.
You're right.
Palate cleanser. Is quite the interesting analysis there.
Very, very, very good as well. It's a unique flavor with the dill, but not overpowering. Very good.
So if you had to pick one,
So far?
these
I
two are the
taste a third to give a good analysis on the
It's only between
these two are the competition.
Those are
You have
two.
to pick which one is better of the two.
Oh, that was in there.
Nope, fried is not part of the competition. It's
Oh,
the two smoked birds.
I think number one is gonna be my edging out.
One for Rob.
That is one for Rob by an edge. Mark, step up to the plate. You're allowed to take smaller bites.
Not when the bird's this good. It's a good ass bird.
That was also Rob's bird that he absolutely inhaled.
Look, if I get beat, I get beat. It's not the first. It's not the last.
I like
This is a daily occurrence, all right?
If we lose, who cares? Oh, God. Different.
Fuck.
Big Robbie. Last night
I thought it was definitely going to be Rob's. That's coming back. That plays the long game.
And that's how much I use the season.
I was gonna say, Jim, you want to are you gonna yell over everyone's analysis or
That's definitely moister.
Rob's?
Yeah.
They're making me half points here. Well, now he's trying to rig it by messing the smoker up and paying the judges.
Trying to pay off the judges.
We got OSHA in here.
The man doesn't care to lose, but he's doing the most to win.
That one.
Rob's? Rob is up 2-0.
Elizabeth?
Lazar?
It's close, though.
I don't like the flavor at last.
Jim?
Yeah.
One for Jim.
Now where's my
Current count? 2-1.
What?
Robbie.
Mark, give me a paper towel when you get a chance.
Yep. little salty, but I like my food salty. I like the flavor, but that piece is better. I'm just going with Rob.
3-1 Rob. Now let's try the winners. I mean, Rob's.
Here, take this piece.
How do you get it this juicy every time?
You know,
This is
know the
insane.
answer to that.
Juicy bird. Gotta have a juicy bird.
Now, I did watch you put like 8 sticks of butter into this beforehand. How much does that play into it?
A lot. And where are the?
With the juiciness factor.
Butter's gonna be more for flavor than for juice, but injecting it does make a difference. You're right.
The
You didn't inject yours, Jim. Fatal flaw for a turkey contest.
Now, I will say, I'm not a fan of like in-your-face spice, and this is kicking a little bit. So,
How long did you brine yours for?
So I ended up brining mine for like 36 hours. And to Hank's point with the spice, I put a little extra seasoning on because we did it before we came over here. I assumed some would fall off like in transit. So it's a little overspiced, but for a contest, I want it to be extra spicy than just for a family Thanksgiving.
fair enough. All right. Now let's go for Jimmy's bird here. I'm very interested to see the how the dill comes through because I am a big pickle guy. So
Hank, big pickle guy.
yeah,
Thank you, Rob.
the dill does come through immediately, and it is still nice and it is still pretty juicy. Like this is much more juicy than your average Thanksgiving family bird. The dill's coming through in a very subtle way.
How do the flavors differ from each other?
So, Rob, your bird is a little more Cajun-y to it,
Yeah.
with a little more,
Cajun-y is
a little
good.
more kick. Jim's is a little more subtle. You still get that. It's still the turkey. The spice isn't overpowering. And that being said,
I got one of each.
if I'm eating turkey, I want to eat turkey. I don't want to eat spice. The bird should not be the vehicle for the spice. The seasoning should emphasize what you're eating.
So you're gonna pick Jim.
Let me get the last little piece here with all the seasoning on it. I gotta go with Jimmy on this one.
Hank picks Jim.
Hey.
Gotta keep it close. I got it.
Let's sit next to you. Yeah.
I'll hand you your mic back when you're done
It's the
eating.
same. Jim plays the long game. It's subtle. That's good.
Actually, put that microphone back in my face. I just got a piece without much seasoning on it. That fucks. I gotta go, Rob. Rob with no skin, no seasoning, like just the meat of the bird. It hits.
You heard it here first, folks. Hank goes back on his word. At the end of the day, you just want the right call, right? If you have to go to replay, challenge the call on the field.
Yeah, we had to go to the replay booth. You know, I want what happened to, show in the result. If we got to go back, if we got to check the replay 3 or 4 times, we got to check the replay 3 or 4 times.
Well, with that, I'll hand you back your mic and see if we can find another judge.
What was the count?
3-1. I think with your flip flop, it went from 3 to 2 to 4 to 1.
4 to 1, and then Haley picked you, so it's 4 to 2. I'm really a coin flip because holy hell, Rob, you're up, kid.
We're running out of turkey
We are.
and storage space.
Damn.
So I only ever had some of the chef's cut of mine while I was cutting it. Haven't had an actual real piece yet. But I'm sure it's going to be pretty similar.
You said he's consistent.
Grading your own work now.
So juicy. I'm sure Jim's is also, but the fact that not every Thanksgiving turkey is this juicy is a crime.
A real tragedy.
Extremely criminal.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it's Cajun, but I didn't think it was overly Cajun, the piece I just had.
That's why I had to change mine. I think the piece I got, it was just a little more spice than normal. Had too much kick to it.
I mean, Jim's is plenty juicy also. Just not quite as much flavor, but it's because you didn't put on as much as I did. The inside layer of the skin is straight dill pickle. Wow. If you eat just the skin,
It's just dill
it
pickle.
is straight dill pickle, yeah. That's pretty good though. Like just eating the skin.
I'm done.
It's a really good turkey also.
So how do you grade it?
I think it just depends what you're going for. I try to over-season mine a little bit because it's a contest. The last thing I want is somebody to say there's not enough seasoning. I'd rather you say there's a lot of Cajun seasoning on this than say, oh, it tastes like turkey. So I try to over-season a little bit for the contest. I think Jim's is definitely more subtle, and serving it to my family, I would go more subtle. But for the contest, I try to add a little bit extra because I think for a contest you need something that differentiates it. I think mine might have been a little bit more juicy, but I mean, I'm obviously gonna pick myself because, but I do think.
Oh, I've said my turkeys were worse than yours before.
I know you have, and I think if it was a noticeable difference, I would pick yours. But I think mine was just a little bit more juicy, and I liked having a little bit extra flavor to it, the seasoning stuff. But I could understand why people wouldn't. I would pick mine if I had a vote.
Rob shocks the world and picks his own turkey. You heard it here first, folks. All right, Jimmy, you're up. All right, Jim going for Rob's bird first.
Okay, I can see why people are saying the turkey is very good without the skin. I tried that first, just to give them the most fair evaluation first. One bite. Everybody knows the rules. That is God. That does have a lot of kick.
It hits you in the face, doesn't it?
Wow. Mm-hmm. Robbie, that is very spicy. In my looking at the birds, you would not expect Robbie's bird to be super spicy. If you looked at mine versus Robbie's, you would say mine has got way more kick on it, spice-wise, like heat-wise.
Actually, now that you say that, just like the color differentiator.
It looks like a holiday bird.
And yours is thick with seasoning.
Yeah, mine looks like we put a little too much brown sugar on it and it burned. But it was good. Mine's a lot sweeter. But I also didn't put any heat on it. I also bought premium stuff that I didn't try before, so I'm gonna say Robbie. I'll say Robbie.
Wow. So, looks like Robbie's winning in a landslide. Even though we kind of to sum up the birds, a little more subtle, little different flavor, nice and sweet, much more juicy. The seasoning hits you like an alcoholic stepfather.
It is not that strong.
It is Robbie. I'm gonna be honest.
You must have got a strong.
I don't think it was that strong.
I mean,
It was
I had a couple different bites,
Bold.
and they do.
full. That's the way to say
I'll
it.
take both.
Yeah. That is a legit description of the chips.
Yeah.
Back to the chips.
Jim fell back in the seat while standing.
You want to shoot your?
Harmon.
You want to shoot your? All right, go on. And so, with a final tally of 5-2, the newest turkey cook-off champion, Rob Antonell. What do you got to say to the people, Rob?
I'm excited to win. Even though I had the trophy from last year, You were technically the last person to win a cook-off, so I'm excited to earn the right to hold on to the trophy again. And I'm excited for next year. I'm kind of disappointed that you didn't go all out with your brine like you usually do, but I mean, I'll take it. I'll take the W and see you back next year.
Good luck next year.
Anything else?
No.
Nothing more to report from Loser Town?
When you lose, say little.
Not how that goes at all, but all right. With that, that's all we got.
You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.